Welcome to another edition of Paradox TV, that's Beyond Belief TV. What are we talking about today? We're talking about a very sensitive subject. We love sensitive subjects. We are talking about abortion. But more importantly, what we're going to call this video is a silent generation. A silent generation. I wonder, and just putting it out there really, I wonder what would happen if today 9 million people in the UK just disappeared like that. What would happen? Would there be an uproar from people? Would people care? Would there be riots in the streets? That 9 million people have just been taken? And that's where we get onto this subject, sensitive subject known as abortion. Now, just to give you some background on this, the Abortion Act came into, or was passed in 1967. And it was introduced by a guy called David Steele. And it's really important that you understand that the guy who actually passed it, because ultimately he's got a whole load of blood in his hands. It was a Labour Party that was in power at that point in time. And it actually came into force on the 27th of April, 1968. Harold Wilson was the Prime Minister at that point in time. And at the time, it was deemed that, it was put forward as all these things are, that it will stop all the dodgy abortions, people that are getting pregnant and having abortions, it'll make it safe, but don't worry, it won't be just a thing where it just is easily done. What will happen is, two doctors will have to agree, and it will have to be to the patient, it will have to be proven, that basically this will cause massive issues to the patient and all these other things. And that's why it was kind of passed. And now we get to a stage, almost, 50 years later, where we've seen 9 million. So on average, so give you just a little bit of meat on the bone with that. So in the UK, roughly, 1 in 19 pregnancies ends in abortion or destruction. Which amounts to roughly about 185,000 children each year. Yeah, 185,000 children each year. Each year, 185,000 people. Globally, it is estimated that 50 million babies are destroyed. 50 million babies are destroyed every single year, which roughly, doesn't roughly, but it would work out somewhere in the region of 125,000 babies are destroyed each year. Each year. 125,000, babies each year. And that's why it's called the silent generation, because can you hear their cries? Can you hear their screams? You've got people out there that kind of rage against each other. You've got the people that are pro-life, You've got people that are pro-choice. And what your decision is based on what you want it to be, isn't it? And ultimately, I always remember having a conversation with a lady, in terms of, and because you might say to yourself, well, hold on here a second, how can you possibly comment on a woman's body? You're a man, right? You're a man, what would you possibly know? It's our bodies and we can do what we want with it. It is your bodies, it is your life, and you are free to do whatever you want with it. But what I would say to you is that the fact that I am a man means nothing, because ultimately it was a man who passed the act. It wasn't a woman, it was a man who passed the act. It was a guy who was a Prime Minister, Harold Wilson, and it was a guy called David Steele who actually passed the act. So ultimately, these guys seem qualified to quote on it. They seem qualified to put forward an act like this. So I feel qualified that I can talk about it as well from my own perspectives. So, as I said, speaking to a lady, now it turns out we were having a conversation, and quite how we got onto this subject I don't know, but we started talking about abortions. We started talking about it. And it turns out that this lady had 2 abortions. Not one. But she had 2 abortions, and we got to talking about it. And I quite, I'm quite kind of, I've got a very good understanding of my views, and I don't think they're particularly out there. She said she's very pro-choice, and the reason why she's pro-choice is this insignificant little blob that's the size of a pea. How can that matter? It's an inconvenience. She said it would have been a massive inconvenience on her life. So what does it matter? So I said, well, I've got 3 children, and what I can assure you is if I didn't have those 3 children, my life would have been so much more simpler. If I had said, I don't want those children, I don't want them, my life would have been so much simpler, because children are, well, especially when they can be, a bit of an inconvenience, right? They're a bit of an inconvenience, aren't they? Anyway, so we got talking about it. And my argument was, well, you know what? The thing that gives me reason, the thing that gives me motivation, the thing that kind of makes me want to be better and strive on, other than other things like my faith, but it's my children. It's my children. And I can imagine my life without my kids. And that was my point, is that when you understand this, there is no greater blessing than anyone can have to be able to create something in their own likeness. There is no better blessing. And you can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. There is nothing in comparison than being able to look upon something that is in your image, something that you've created. It's marvelous. Saying magical wouldn't be even a word to really describe it. It is out of this world. Interesting enough, that's how God looks at you. But that's how amazing it is. So we got onto this subject, and again, it's quite a sensitive subject. And I said, before we talk about this, we've got to have one rule. And he said, what's that? I said, right, what we're talking about, we're going to have a pleasant conversation about this, and we're going to take all the emotion out. We're going to take this emotion, we're going to put it over there, and we're going to park it, right? We're going to take this emotion, we're going to put it over there and park it. And she said, all right, that's fine. So we got to talking about it. And she told me that what her point was, that it's her body, it's her choice. She made that decision. She's had it twice, or done it twice, should I say. Had 2 abortions twice because it was an inconvenience. Yeah? And she doesn't care because ultimately she's an atheist, etc., etc. And I said, well, that's brilliant. That's down to you. What you wanted, your choice is your choice. But I said, there's an undercurrent to that, which you might not have considered. And she asked me what that was. And I said, right, well, I'm a Christian. I understand that life is life. Yeah? Just because a load of academics and a load of lawyers have said that actually, if you listen to some of these imbeciles, and that's what they are, imbeciles. Some of them say that a child hasn't really got any real consciousness up to the age of 3, or a child hasn't got any real consciousness up to the age of 5, I've heard quotes say, and you should still hold the choice, if you want to destroy those children, which is so absurd, it's completely mental. Anyway, like I said, we're taking the emotion out. So I said to her, right, okay, there's an undercurrent to this. Okay? And I said, this is going to hurt you a little bit, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I believe that all life is completely precious. Right? I believe that all life is completely precious. And that life starts. Yeah? And I asked her when life started. She said, well, it's more conscious. I said, all right, so how do you know when life ends? And she said to me, well, I know. I said, but fundamentally, yeah, because not everyone's conscious when they die. When does life end? And she said, well, I said, it would be the heartbeat, right? So we, as a world, we as academics or whoever, scientists, Christians, whatever, Muslims, Catholics, whatever, atheists, would have to come to the decision that as soon as the heart stops beating, that life ends, right? You say, well, it's about, well, no, because the body's still working. If the heart's still pumping, the body's still working, right? So why then would it be so hard to imagine that life starts at our first heartbeat? And the moment that basically that you end that life, that is murder. You can give it another name if you want to, but that in essence is what it is. The moment that life, that heartbeat has stopped, once it started has stopped, which is within 2 weeks usually, that is classed as murder. So here's the interesting thing. And I said this to her as well. I said that, let's say, for example, that you're right, that you're an atheist and God doesn't exist. And he said, yeah. And I said, you die and you go down to the lower parts of the earth, etc., and your body just rots. Yeah? Okay, yeah, right, okay. Well, then that's all right, isn't it? So it doesn't matter. But I said, there's a flip side to that coin. And the flip side is this, that there is an afterlife. And you will be confronted by God. And you can tell him why you deemed that 2 blessings you had in your life were a big inconvenience. And you can tell him and see what he thinks about it. But I already know the answer to that question. The moment I said this, she got really upset with me. And I said, but all we're having is a conversation, right? Because you don't want to be told the truth. The way society is, the way these people are, these people who define what life is. Who are you to define? Who are you to turn around and tell people that it's all right to have abortions? Who are you? Who are you to challenge God? You're nobody. Apparently 6 million people died in the Holocaust, which has caused a massive divide ever since the Second World War. Massive divide. Yet 50 million people die each and every year, and not a single thing is said about it. And anyone who raises up an arm about it, anyone who says something about it, is immediately cast down, is immediately chucked away and said, no, you're wrong, because we've researched this and we know. Well, let me tell you something, academics, you don't know diddly squat. You've been brought up on a bent educational system which you live in, and it means nothing. You discern without wisdom. You know, I remember hearing a story about a doctor. And this doctor carried out abortions. And what happened was, he pulled out, so he was doing an abortion, he was doing a destruction, and he pulled this child out. And this child, as it came out, grabbed his finger. And let me tell you, he was so convicted over that experience. He was so convicted over that experience that he was never able, or he would never do another abortion because of that conviction. Now, the fact is, there's a load of liberals out there or whatever, and ultimately it's your choice. It's your choice. But you shall know the truth. Anyone who, you know, if you're listening to this, if you're listening to other people who actually care, you will know the truth. In my opinion, I'm not an academic, but in my opinion, life starts from its first heartbeat, and I challenge anyone to prove me wrong. I challenge anyone to bring an argument how life doesn't start at its first heartbeat, because I can show you the whole history, whether you're an atheist and you believe in evolution, the theory of evolution, or you believe in the Big Bang. I can show you that in the whole of nature, life starts at a heartbeat. And how can we not be convicted as a nation? How can we not be convicted as a nation that 185 people are ripped from our society every single year? How can we not be convicted that since it came in 1968, 27th of April 1968, how can we not be convicted that 50 million people roughly would have been destroyed? How can we not be convicted of that? Can you not hear their screams? No, you can't, because you can hear their silence. The point is this: whether you had an abortion, whether you haven't had an abortion, whether you agree with me, whether you don't disagree with me, this is my opinion. And this opinion is based on fact. Fact of when life begins, and I can tell you there is a God. But there is. If you've done this and you're getting convicted of these things, yeah? If you have children after an abortion, you're going blinking heck, because these people will stay with you. They will stay with you. They're there in your mind. They're there in your heart. You might have clogged it away, but I guarantee it will come back to you. And you will always remember. But there is redemption. There is salvation. And if you've done one of these things, there is a God that forgives. There is a name above all names but you can find repentance. Understand, abortion, termination isn't just one of those things. It is a massive thing. It is our society that are offering up children to be murdered. Offering up children to be murdered. Because these leftists, socialists, atheists, whoever, want to sacrifice to their God, and his name is the devil. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Always interested to get your views, your points, and this isn't at you as the people. If you're listening to this, you have been conditioned by idiots who tell you that it's all right. You've been dumbed down as a nation. Understand that creating a child is the greatest blessing that anyone can ever have bestowed upon them. Creating something in your own image is the greatest thing. There is no other. There is no other. And heck, when you don't hear those children's laughters, when you don't hear their cries, it's not even worth thinking about. This is Paradox TV, because the truth does matter.